2 draws in the last 2 games, won a hard-fought point against promotion hopefuls Huddersfield, and won a tired, jaded, jagged performance, dropping 2 points against relegation-threatened Shrewsbury, has left many fans scratching their heads as to where we will actually finish this current season. Welcome to episode 407 of the Tilehurst podcast. Slightly later than advertised. We wanted to wait until these 2 games were done so we could get a really good idea of what are essentially 2 points, out of 6. Ross, as always, is with me. He's not wearing a jersey, but
I'm not wearing a jersey.
Is that a training issue from Seacoast United?
Exactly. This is my coaching sweater.
Nice.
I actually have another one that has a little notepad in it, which is very good because I have a kid who only
inside the jumper.
Correct, because I have a kid who only speaks Spanish. So I have sort of like football Spanish translated. It's a lot of vamos, if you've seen Jude Bellingham going. I'm also feeling a little tired, jagged, and jaded. I liked the way that you put that. I'm still working my way back from the man flu. So this sweater is keeping me warm. We're feeling good. If I'm not sounding good, that's because despite this being the second time we started recording this, I didn't put it through my own microphone yet. So this is going to sound just so much better when we get into the review, guys. Don't even worry about it.
Well, sound issues aside, illness aside, we are, as ever, sponsored by ZCZ Films. Very grateful to them, as always.
Yep. They've got a snazzy new website, by the way. If you haven't had a look, go and have a look at the ZCZ Films website. It's snazzy. It looks good. There's some nice pictures of Waldy and his team. So yeah, thanks as always to ZCZ Films. And
I feel bad that I haven't looked at it.
Well, I just spotted it the other day because I remember his old website from when I first started. When we first started doing the pod. So anyway, yeah, nice website. Looks good.
Okay, well, we'll give it a go. We're going to give the recap a go. 2 games, one against Huddersfield, one against the Shrews. Stupid nickname.
The Shrews.
Shrews, yeah. But, look, 2 points out of 6 ain't great, especially after last night's performance. But we're going to get into that after this short break.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you Oz!
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films, showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.
All right, welcome back to episode 407 of the Tilehurst podcast. This is about the 6th time we've started to do this section. I think we're good now. I think we're all good.
I think we've worked it out.
Papers. Ross has plugged everything in. We're here to talk first of all about Huddersfield Terriers. Look, good result, all things considered. I think Huddersfield were 4th or 5th heading into the game, in reasonable form. It's a game that we kind of could have afforded to lose, if you can ever afford to lose a game. But in terms of a team of that calibre, in terms of where they are, and in terms of our away form that's been sketchy at best over the past 6-7 months, it was a good result. Clean sheet, honours even pretty much on possession. Where do you want to start with this one, Ross? It was all right, wasn't it? It was what probably the best we could have hoped for. It would have been unlikely for us to get anything out of the game, but getting a point to bring back to Berkshire.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us kind of going into this game, we're thinking, so I mean, starting from the top, I mean, that you mentioned last podcast that February, or maybe the podcast before, is a really busy month for Reading. There's a lot of good teams coming in, and it's going to show us very quickly where Reading kind of are versus the other playoff teams in that picture. Obviously now 3 points outside after the draw against the Shrewsbury last night, but I think after the Huddersfield game, most of us would have been in better spirits than we've been for a couple of weeks because, it's not spectacular under Hunt, but it is more solid. And away from home, it's a lot more savvy. It's a lot more direct. But also there's an element of game management to it, which I really like. I really liked the way in which Reading were able to not expend too much energy while also keeping Huddersfield at enough of an arm's length for about 45 to 50 minutes in that game. Huddersfield ended the first half with something like 8 shots, and 1 was on target. So really, in terms of useful shots, they ended up with 1 more than Reading in the first half for all of their huff and puff. And then after that, Reading were able to seize momentum coming out in the second half and have a good period for a little while too, even create some chances. So, I think overall, at the end of that night, I was in a pretty good mood about where Reading were at with the playoff race, because you need your draws away from home and you need your wins at home if you're gonna push up into that category of teams. And this was one of those, and it was one against a decent team. So yeah, really against Huddersfield, I was pretty happy. I think one of the most interesting things we saw in this, and I'll come back to you on this, was we almost got to see a direct comparison of Wareham versus Kelvin in the 9 in the centre forward position. And I thought that was one of the most interesting elements of the game for me. So I'm interested in your thoughts on how those two got on.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kelvin didn't start the game. If he came on 60 something minutes, did okay,
Around then.
provided a little bit of an impetus. I thought overall we were better second half. I didn't think we were great first half at all, but that was kind of to be expected in the kind of the nature of the game and the context of how, potentially the Bolton game had a week earlier had taken some stuff out of us, really. I think when you strip it down, it's two clean sheets against two sides that, on paper, we to get 4 points out of the Bolton and the Huddersfield game in isolation was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can really whinge about those results. Did we deserve to win against Bolton? We talked about that last week, but this one was a really hard fought point. That age old statement. With Wareham, after the game, my initial response is actually, do you know what, I'd give Kelvin a go. I'd just let him run at people. And obviously we'll come on to ironically those two combining for our goal last night. But, it's very, very difficult for Jaden Wareham at the moment when the midfield is providing him next to nothing in terms of chances. And, he's quite isolated. I thought his hold-up play was very good in spells on Saturday. He's had to do an awful lot of work in the same way that Sam Smith did. He's not as technically able a finisher as Sam Smith was, and potentially won't be moving forward. So
my sense on Wareham, can I just jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Is that the opinion on him in the fan base swings massively in the way that it does on just like how we're doing generally, and it really goes up and down with him, and it's tough. Like, strikers at that age, it is basically score goals or welcome to Bromley Town. Like, there's no real way around it. Like, you have to score goals if you're a striker. You have to do you have to do the fun part in inverted commas, but you then have to do a lot of slop to get to that kind of part. Wareham, for me, I posted something yesterday after the Shrewsbury game where I said I was quite happy with how he started life without Sam Smith. I think he's been by far the best at hold-up play so far, and he's actually come on a lot in the last couple of weeks alone. I was watching just only clips of him holding up the ball on Wisecout earlier today, and there is notable improvement in how he can keep the ball close to him, or at least find somebody with his head as that ball comes at him more often, which is quite impressive. And I really like Kelvin as a player. I also kind of thought that he might be the guy to go to when Smith was gone. But I do really like him on the left wing as well. And the thing that was notable for me against Huddersfield is that after Wareham went off, I thought our period of kind of dominating the attacking chances in the game sort of started to drift off a bit. And I think that was partly to do with the fact that Wareham was winning about twice as many aerial balls, twice as many like 50-50s that were coming near him. It is just the things like that, like where Wareham will put his body on the line, he'll win several, 50-50 challenges per game. And that'll help. So I had some concerns about, kind of where he was at and what Sam Smith leaving the team was going to do to our attack. These 2 games from Wareham, probably my biggest positive from the 2 games overall.
Yeah, I think I think he's got a lot of growing to do. I think his movement off the ball is improving with every game.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads us nicely into kind of Shrewsbury, really, because those two games, the Bolton and the Huddersfield game, left the fan base kind of on the edge of like, do we start to believe that we can mix it at this level in terms of getting in the playoffs, which
Right.
I think overall led to a bit of an expectation that we should win against Shrewsbury, who were in the relegation zone, who are still in the relegation zone following that that draw at the SCL last night. You can argue they were in better form going into the game. Gareth Ainsworth has got them playing again. He's got them believing. There's a little bit of steel within the team that perhaps wasn't there. But any way you spin it, that if you want to make the playoffs, you have to win these games at home. And you can understand where the squad is at. You can say, as we said at the start, that they look tired, they look jaded. There is no depth there at all. But also be critical of the absolute basics that probably weren't in that game last night. So if we peel it away, give away a penalty, definite penalty. I think you said in the group, Chem knows exactly what he's doing, and I watched it back.
It's a cheeky one, yeah.
Yeah, he was going to get a shot off, all right, like you said, through a crowd of players, but he knows exactly what he's doing there. So, all right, take one for the team, put us under pressure. Luckily that we've got Joel in goal who cleared it not once but twice.
That was insane. The second one in particular is, I mean, the penalty itself is sort of like a weak. I mean, sorry, listeners, it was a liquid poop of a penalty. Like it was awful. Crap. That was rubbish. That was like my dog
save it, right? He's still got to save it.
He's still got to get in front of it, exactly. But the second one,
put his body in a line.
Yeah, and the second one was really good, like getting big and up in the air like quickly. Yeah. So, but anyway, the first that was one of the worst penalties I've seen in a very long time. Yeah.
And then of course we literally go up the other end, as they say in Sunday League. Kelvin, incredible to keep the ball alive. I think it was a miss-hit cross. Was it from wing? Maybe?
It's come over from wing. It is really good play from Kelvin, because I sometimes complain that Kelvin doesn't use his significant frame enough, and that I'd like him to put in some time in the weight room. Side note, come back to Kelvin Abrafer has been in the weight room. Anyway, going back to the other Kelvin.
I thought you've been in the weight room.
Me and the Kelvins are always in the weight room. Yeah, bulking up.
Pureed bananas and kilograms on the weights. That's all it is.
Listeners, if you never watch the YouTube podcast, just so that you know, I'm about 150 pounds. So the idea of me bulking up with the Kelvins is very amusing.
But it would be a lovely documentary. I think.
It would. All or nothing.
Exactly, all or nothing, yeah.
I love this.
So what are we talking about? So we're talking about Kelvin, right? So he recycles the ball really, really well.
Yep.
Pretty lazy defending, I think, from Shrewsbury. But again, much like the penalty, he's still got to be able to do something with that ball to get it across. And the thing that I was really pleased about is that if you watch the goal back, it was a packed box. And not only is the ball good, but you watch kind of Wareham do that double run where it goes in and out again.
Yep.
Do you call it a fish hook, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I would call it a fish hook sometimes.
Comes back in, good finish. And he desperately needed that goal. At that point, had he gone last night without scoring, he's had incredibly big boots to fill over the last couple of weeks. But, regardless, strikers are judged on their goals. Goals to game ratios, that is when they retire, that is always what is going to come back to. So the fact he got one yesterday, really, really positive.
Definitely,
In terms of where he goes from here, don't know. But he's with that goal, people won't like it, but he's picked himself again for Rotherham. Had he not, I think there would have been a significant conversation about it, really.
I would agree with that. I thought the midfield last night were poor, and that was where the issues were coming from. And I thought that the front three were okay. I would have, even with Chem giving away the penalty, I would play all three of them again in the next game. Personally, I think that's the lineup right now that's going to give us the best attacking output, which sounds ridiculous in a game where we've just put up less than a goal of expected goals. Kelvin is the only left winger we have at the moment who's capable of getting to the byline and then crossing, putting a cutback back in. He's the only guy that can do it consistently. Kamara can be creative. I think I've seen him a little bit more in the last few weeks. Been a little bit more impressed with Kamara.
Kamara played 50 games for Reading now. I mean, it's
games.
probably time to have a sensible conversation about him as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe we'll wait till next week for that one.
We'll go next week. But what you said about finding room in a packed box is right. That is a skill. It is, like if you see space, that it's not just about let me get into that space as quickly as possible. It's how do I guarantee that in 3 seconds time, this defender is not going to follow me into that space or something like that. So it's all very well to say, like they were defending lazily in the box or whatever, but it's a packed box and Wareham has found himself. It's not so much that he's the guy who's got to the ball. It's that he's got to the ball with a yard of space around him. So he's got all the time he needs to put that wherever he wants, basically, which is, it's just a skill. It's really important.
I mean, after Saturday, I said that I felt it was probably time to give Kelvin a go, given the impact that he had when he came on. I'm glad I don't manage the team because I was made to look a bit stupid last night because I thought Wareham was okay. I thought he had a good game. I think that the problem for him really is that he historically has not done enough. Like he's kind of come out of the under-21s consistently from last year. I think he was in and around a couple of the squads at the end of last season.
He was on the subs bench an awful lot in the back half of last season, yeah.
And then was really a kind of a squad player up until, Sam Smith left. He had appearances here and there, did all right in some of the cup games.
His best moment probably against Exeter away. Where he scored that first minute goal.
He was all right against Newport this year as well at home. I seem to remember. But he again, it's symptomatic of our fan base where actually you need to look at the context of where we are a little bit. And we don't have the luxury, I believe, of getting on players' backs. Yeah, you can ask for changes, but some of this stuff that's come out about him and some of the other players really, and the manager, I personally think has been unwarranted because nothing's going to change now between where we are in the middle of February and May. So you might as well just back them. That's my opinion. It's frustrating, of course it is. Last night there was times of like, this is just shit. Like, what are you doing? But actually, in the context, they're exhausted, they're tired, they're playing too many games. I know you said the other week it's Saturday to Saturday, but now we're going Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, and so on. It's going to catch up with them. And that was like the game last night. What would have been great is if he could have made 3 or 4 changes to start the game. Can't do that because of injuries and because there's no players to do that. So his hands are tied massively, I think, at the moment. And
I think you got to come on over to Blue Sky, mate, more often. I was saying I made a positive post about Wareham yesterday, and it's doing well. People are loving it. We're just having we're having a right barnstormer after a terrible result against Shrewsbury.
I think that's
over there. So there you go.
It's very much feast or famine with these results at the moment. And
so let me give a good overview piece on this thing, because I think that something that people should compare this to is the last game of Sellers' time as Reading manager, which is a 3-0 win over Cambridge United at home. I think
8 people there. I remember.
Yeah, it's about 8 people there. Ben was one of them. Were you there with Robbie that night? I don't even know. No. I know he was there alone one night, and that was very, very funny. And I blamed you for that. But anyway, so that night we won 3-0 against Cambridge. We created bugger all. And basically it was just a night where Wing was able to do his Wing thing, and he scored 2 really, really good goals. Now, a lot of teams seem to have worked out that the way to beat Reading is to give them as much of the ball as they want, as long as Lewis Wing isn't allowed to have it. And as long as Lewis Wing isn't allowed to have it, Reading throw their hands up in the air and are like, last night, okay, normally wing is by far the person who touches the ball the most if the opposition hasn't game planned around him. He gets over 100 touches a game. Last night he got something like 60 something, and Bindon got like 90 or 100, and Craig got like 70 or 80. They were the top two. Okay, so that's showing you where Shrewsbury decided the play was going to go through. They said, all right, Craig can have it, Bindon can have it, Wing is not allowed to have this ball. And then if you do that to Reading... So my point is basically, I think
that
Cambridge... That was my dramatic pause to indicate nothing, basically. Yeah. So my point is basically, I don't think it's that different to where it was sometimes when Reading have to expand and be expansive. And go out and put on a show in inverted commas at home. A lot of the time, the opposition team knows that if they just shut down one player, a lot of their job's done for them.
So there was you might have seen it. There was an interview with Big Ange at Spurs over the weekend, and he basically went on another rant
Cool.
about all these players he hasn't got and all the rest of it. And
yeah,
for what it's worth, I like him as a manager, but I think he's completely lost the plot. To be honest,
a little bit,
absolutely. You know, the kind of he's broken down the fourth wall now in terms of actually I'm a professional manager rather than just ranting and raving all the time.
Right.
But I kind of thought actually, if you look at our situation, you look at the injuries to key players that we've had. So Mbenge, Elliott, I would class as a key player.
Yep.
Obviously selling Sam Smith, losing Sellers. And yet we're still in the, like, we're not out of the mix yet. We're still doing something. And the football isn't great, but that's League One football, right? Like generally, I can't remember the last time I watched a game of League One football as a neutral. Went, that was really good, really enjoyed.
Yeah,
like, it just doesn't happen.
Last night was a proper League One game too.
Yeah, exactly, it was. But the point is that there needs to be a little bit of perspective here. We're not in the relegation zone. We've got another 2 points towards that 50 mark. We win on Saturday, and I would say that we're pretty much safe. I don't think, given the quality of the teams that I've seen us play and kind of watch from afar, I don't think anyone's going to catch us in terms of the relegation. We'd have to go on a horrific run, and those other teams would have to go on tremendous, tremendous performances and form tables to be able to catch us. So that's done and dusted for me. I think the fact we're still in with a shout at the playoffs, having not brought a player, having signed 2 players this season when other clubs around us have brought, more strikers than we have for the whole team. Like, I think we're doing okay, all things considered.
We could call up Ange and offer him Billy Bowden if he'll give us Heung-min Son, just for the run or something like that.
He's a player I love him. He's very underrated.
Yeah, great player.
But, it is one of those things where I get where he was coming from, because he's sick of answering the same questions. And they've been, I have no real opinion on Spurs, but they've been absolutely decimated, and they haven't brought, replacements in properly to be able to do that. So
sometimes I think about texting Spurs fan friends to be like, "Oh, what are they going to do now?" And then I know they'll start complaining about Levy, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to talk about ownership struggles with fans of any other team, quite frankly. Hey, you made a really good point when you were talking about key players who are out in that kind of thing. You know what the difference was between, obviously, Wing hitting 2 worldies. But you know what a large part of the difference was, looking back at the FOTMOB and the sofa score from that Cambridge game? We had Ben Elliott that night, and he created 0.35 expected assists, which is a decent amount. So yeah, you're bang on. Like, when we don't have this is when we don't have Ben Elliott, he is so key to our creativity outside of Wing.
Nibs was injured for a long period of time, as been the same player since he's come back, in my opinion. Yeah, he obviously scored the penalty against Bolton, but generally his play hasn't been great. Charlie Savage, as much as I love him and as much as he works hard, he's absolutely exhausted, or he looks like he's exhausted. Like, he's just chasing shadows a lot of the time, and the energy that he brings, isn't allowing those other players at the moment to get into the mix. Lewis Wing has been, pushed out of games. Defensively, we've looked okay, but it's just been a bit disjointed up top. We did have Chem Campbell, then we didn't, now we do. Kelvin's coming back after a long period of absence. Wareham's kind of new to playing 90 minutes or playing more regularly than he is. So it's all a bit of a mishmash at the minute, and I just think you can be annoyed with the result. Of course you are. I mean, I'm irritated with the result. I thought it was terrible, really, really bad result. But we've kind of lost someone in the post-match interviews in Sellers who was very, very straight down the middle, very, very unemotional, very, very matter of fact. And now we've got a manager who isn't like that and who will talk about officials and will talk about fine margins and being unlucky in inverted commas. So it's been a change and it's been a culture, and it's the frustrating thing is that we were doing so well and then Sellers decided, well, I'm off.
Yeah.
It's just football. It's just the way it works. And actually, Noel Hunt is not going to be sacked between now and May. He's not going to do it. He might get to May and go, do you know what, I've had enough. I want to go back to the under-21s.
Unless he does an Ian Ever and he sacks himself.
Exactly.
He could do that. But
I don't think he will. And there's no need. Like, no one else is coming in at this stage. So I just think we just back him.
It's perfectly solid, and it gets us points on the road against other playoff teams. Like that's he's not going anywhere. Between now and the end of the season. Most important question of the double game week: who would win in a fight between a Shrew and a Terrier? Because I think a Shrew is more. I know, like, a Shrew is smaller than a Terrier.
That's a really good question.
But a Shrew, like, it's feisty. I wouldn't want to.
They got teeth, haven't they? They got.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how big shrews are now. So, Ryan, can you try and put a picture of a shrew up here?
Yeah. Can you put what are essentially like small mammals in like a scale?
Okay. Yeah.
Like, where do they are they? They're not as big as a beaver, are they?
No, they're not. Oh, they're tiny little thing. All right. Yeah, a terrier would rip this thing to pieces. I
don't think so. Because
many terriers or how many shrews?
Well, what terrier? Do you mean a Yorkshire Terrier?
Yeah, a Yorkshire Terrier.
Rubbish, mate. Just kick it out. No, I don't kick dogs before anyone starts winning. I'm actually wearing a T-shirt. That says
wearing your cat T-shirt.
So, see that?
Yeah, very nice.
I don't know. I think a Shrew would give it the runaround, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's
just
true.
Do those little like death.
It's like a mongoose fighting a cobra. Kind of. Yeah,
he'd just be nibbling away like little cuts here and there.
Right. Yeah, just getting in, getting out. He's got a big, long, spindly nose thing too, so he can stick it all over the terrier. So yeah, wouldn't want to muck with that. The sixth picture, if you look up Shrew on Google Images, is one that just says it's on a white background and it says Shrew gives birth on camera. Anyway,
not give birth on camera. I'm going to look at it.
All right, get us out of this Shrew nonsense.
Yeah, well, let's go to the mailbag. I'm gonna. Oh, they're weenie, aren't they?
Yeah, they're tiny little things.
They're really small.
Yeah, that's why it was like a terrier would rip it to pieces.
Let's get into a mailbag that hasn't been chewed by a Shrew. Let's do that.
Yeah,
now.
And if next mailbag, send us if your dog could beat up a Shrew or not.
Yeah, or eat it.
Yeah. Send in your views to the tilehurstend@gmail.com and have your say in the mailbag.
All right, we've done the Shrew chat. We've looked at some.
What's
things.
the first thing you would smell if you had a nose like that?
I smell everything. I've got a really sensitive.
Yeah, right. The fatberg.
Yeah, I couldn't smell it from the Dolan.
I was just going to say if you had to smell it from Tilehurst if you had that nose.
I can smell the hot dogs when they,
How is it
where I sit, because there's like a chip van outside the turnstile.
Yeah,
you get a waft every now. It's quite nice, quite like
Yeah, I know exactly. No, I know what you mean. We used to get to go to Fenway more when we lived in Boston, and the waft off the Italian sausage cart as you go by. The classic thing to do here.
That is.
I know it is. Yeah, the classic thing to do is to get a spicy or sweet Italian sausage. I'm not even lying. And then you get onions, peppers all over it. It's mint. It's proper good. Baseball is really fun.
That is a ballpark. That is a ballpark. Before we do that, you might have seen on social media, you might have got the email from the club as well. They're doing this royalty card for the next 6 or 7 games, really. Basically, if you buy 6 individual match tickets, for individual matches, pretty straightforward. You get your 7th one free. And I'm not here to promote it. We're not here to promote it, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, really, Ross, because obviously attendances are literally in the toilet. Like, they are really bad at the moment, particularly for the midweek games.
Yeah.
And you know, the one thing I've always said, and I have an issue with, is that the match-to-match tickets in isolation are really expensive. I think for what you get back. Do you do you think that they're going to be able to get anything out of this in terms of traction? You know, people are going to go, great, I'm going to go to 7 games between now and the end of the season, and get one of those free. Do you think there's going to be people that are desperate to do that?
It's tricky, isn't it? I mean, to be honest, I quite like it because I think that it's the same as like a pass or like a game pack that they'll give you, whereby whenever you get a game pack, you always end up with one that's on a weird night, or one that you didn't particularly want, or something like that. So at least with this, there is the element of choice to it. Are there only those 7 games left at home? Is that why?
I don't know how many we've got left. I feel like we've got 9 left. I'm not sure.
That's not too bad then. 2/3 of the games and you get one free. I think that's all right. I always have an issue with game packs just because, like I said, you always end up with ones that you don't necessarily want. So yeah, that's not too bad. Anything that is aimed at trying to get more fans into the stadium it is good because I don't have to suffer that impact as much as you, because they always point the camera at the exciting part of the fans, and I can see you guys. Well, I can't see you actually because you're in the Dolan, but I can see Sim and the rest of it.
There was no one in the Dolan last night, and it was just horrible, and I didn't want to do a video, and Sim will be livid. I didn't want to do my column either last night. I just want to forget about this game and move on. There are 9 home games left, yeah.
Okay, so I think that's not bad. You buy tickets for 2/3 and you get a free ticket. Yeah, I would agree with you though that I know it's tricky for the club, but they are quite expensive tickets for League One football. I do agree with that.
I think the thing that has been levelled is that they don't seem to be doing enough. Whereas that's something, right? That is that's a tangible thing that they can hold on to and go, "Yeah, actually, do you know what? We tried."
Yeah,
we're trying to give people a free ticket if they buy 6. So, yeah, I don't have an issue with it particularly. I think I'm catching your cough from it.
Yeah, it's translating through the airwaves.
Right, let's actually get into the problem, Matt. I just thought I'd bring that up, because
it's worth it.
It was an interesting little nugget, really. Right, let's have a look at the mailbag then. So, here we go. People talking about your bloody video. If you haven't checked it out, Ross has done a tactics thing, and everyone was like, "Oh, Ross is amazing." Well,
it's all right. It's pretty good. I still lots of stuff that I didn't say that's kind of in my head. The problem with releasing one, the problem with releasing one of those things is that every time you release it, the first time you watch back through, again, and you should never ever do this, you'll be like, oh no way, I didn't make that very clear, or I should have said this, or like, oh well, that makes sense in the context of blank. The main thing I've been thinking about since I released this on Monday was I always forget to say my name. They just go straight into it. I don't say, hello, I'm Ross, and this is, for the Tilehurst end. I think
people would know by now, wouldn't they? You'd like to think they'd know.
I would hope so.
18 months of doing this pod, you'd like to think they would.
The fan, the ones, if you know, you know. And there's a group of people that, like to talk tactics with me and watch the videos and respond. And that's, great. So, the reception has been really nice so far. Thank you for that. I did a video. I think it was kind of suggested on the mailbag actually originally, but I did a mailbag. I did a video on kind of how things have changed under Hunt versus under Sellers. There's not like tons and tons and tons of change, but there are some noticeable things. So the video kind of goes into what those are, but also kind of breaks down what some issues were with kind of Reading's play before Sellers was leaving too, because the way that, Sellers leaving worked out, we never really had to talk about it, but there were some issues starting to develop. So this kind of gave me a chance to break that down as well.
Do you know when we did, out of interest, when we did the date of our first pod?
I don't know the date. It would have been around July 2023 or something like that.
Yeah, 2nd of July.
Yeah,
2023.
Okay.
Episode 341.
I remember listening to I like to go to Burlington, Vermont, for my birthday. My birthday's the 3rd, and so I remember driving out that way and listening to the podcast to make sure it was okay. So yeah.
Well, we're
Anyway,
still there.
so yeah, give the video a go. It's on YouTube. You can find it on my Blue Sky page. Thank you to Ryan for editing it. It looks great, and yeah, give it a go.
Why,
I'm going to
why have
shut
I
up
brought that
about.
up?
Huh?
Oh,
Why
because
have we brought that up?
so the question is, well, it's not. Well, is it a question? Yeah. As Ross pointed out in his video, blah blah blah. There isn't as big a difference between Hunt and Sellers as people like to think. One common theme
I'm
is the
glad that
midfield
came through.
issues. Yeah, getting overrun and beaten to the majority of second balls. Would a change in formation help? Yeah, I'd go 2 up top. Just smash it.
Yeah, we've talked. I think I've talked before. Like my preference. I mean, I like 4-3-3 structures. I think that the vast majority of structures these days are coached out of either a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3. And then every formation is just a variation of one of those two. Basically, some teams do both in different phases of play. I've talked before. I talked a couple of weeks ago about how 4-2-3-1 would maybe be something that I would look to do when Reading need to be a bit more creative. Right now, I think that Reading can give up a player further down the field and build up and bring them in to try and help out, try and get wing onto the ball a little bit more. In my opinion, that might be something that could help. But really, I wouldn't do much with the formation for Reading outside of tweaking whether you have 2 6s or 2 8s on any given day. I think this is probably the best formation for Reading to be playing in. But I do think that they could more often switch between playing Savage, because I think Savage can play well as a 6 or an 8. So just play him as a 6 for some games, play him as an 8 for some games. But maybe counterintuitively, I would play him further back for the games where we need to be more creative. Because I think that just having him involved in build-up will allow Wing to become more free. And therefore we will be better, because we're always better when the statistically best player in League One is able to have the ball. If you haven't seen this, by the way, Opta Analyst does League One stats, and Lewis Wing is statistically, numerically, the best player in League One, which is quite funny. So yeah.
Thanks for that question, Matt. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Really, I don't see a formation change coming anytime soon. I think maybe if personnel changes in the summer force his hand, if it's still no Hunt or whoever, then yeah, I think we're probably due a refresh really. But
what you said about front twos is interesting, because I actually think we've seen more interesting deployments of front twos this season than we've seen for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like pretty much every elite team likes to use a front three. With sort of like wingers that either cut inside or stay wide, whatever. But I've been impressed in League One with some of the teams that have shown up with the front two this year, just with the way that they're able to build dialogue between their strikers. Yeah.
I mean, some of those, with I can't think off the top of my head, but some of those with the two, it's not a flat two. That one tends to be a little bit behind the forward line, and it's just an extra feed in. It's almost like attacking midfielder as opposed to an out striker. So, yeah, there has been some nice variations there. You're right. Steve Rex, if last night, that's a cool name, Steve Rex.
That is a good
real
name. Yeah,
that can't be
Steve Rex. Well,
I don't think this is that his real name?
That's my real name now. That's not his name anymore. I'm changing my name to
Ross
Steve
Rex.
Ross Rex.
That's a cool name. If last night is anything to go by, they now hoof it out to the wingers, and if it reaches them, they either pass it backwards or over hit across. They don't put it out the middle anymore, as Wareham can't hold the ball up or win it in the air. Would disagree with the hold-up play, for sure.
I would personally disagree with that, yeah.
In the air is a difficult one. I mean, what do you make of Wareham in the air, Ross?
I think Wareham has, like I say, I think it's fair to say a few weeks ago that Wareham was not doing great with his build-up play. I think that is about a month ago, I would have probably agreed. I think there's been a lot of improvements since then. I've talked a little bit about how he gets involved in way more challenges now than he used to, which just kind of, again, that's one of my metrics I'm using for useful running this year. And he's now starting to win more of those challenges too. So last night, Harvey Nibbs looked really tired, and he only got involved in about 8 challenges all night. That is so low. For Nibbs, he's normally up around like 20 something. I think Wareham was one of the few players who was up around that level. So I do think that, I do think that he's, still got a lot to learn, but I think that the last few weeks have been better. Now, we just hoof the ball out to the wingers and they knock it down and try and come back. We don't go through the middle. There's some truth to that. We definitely hook it out to Michael Craig a lot. That is a lot of the game plan now. And with Garcia on that left back position, where I've actually ended up seeing him most recently is almost like providing compactness to the formation and coming over with Savage pretty far. I've seen Garcia get really far over, still inverting. And I don't think that it's because he's been told to do that. I think it's because the team plays down the right. And so he has to come over that side of the field. So I do think that there are issues with sending the ball out, over the top to the winger over and again, and hoping they can knock it down. But I think a large part of that comes from the fact that that's only working for Reading going one way right now. And shifting back over to the other side to, quickly. We saw this issue with England in the summer. When you don't have quite the personnel that you need on one side of your formation, the whole thing doesn't necessarily work creatively. So
interesting you mentioned Garcia, SP37. Interesting how we rejected a bid for Garcia, but accepted one for Smith. I think that's a lot to do with the reported structure of the deal. I don't think, Reading, we just needed fast cash. And when Wrexham came along, of all people, who went, yeah, it's 2 million. Great, we'll take that right now, thanks.
And some stock coffee.
Exactly, yeah. With Garcia, it's like Moneyball. Yeah, we want you to stock our Pepsi machine or our soda machine.
Yeah. Do you have that iced coffee that they have, the stock iced coffee in the UK? Is that a thing?
I don't know about stock, but there is coffee that's kind of...
Okay. They sponsor Wrexham, and so there's a Wrexham logos in our supermarkets. It's very, very weird.
What? There's actually like on the...
Yeah. Their logo is on. It says stock coffee, and then it says sponsors of Wrexham up on the top of it. So you get a little Wrexham. I'll send a picture next time I get it.
I was going to say to you, actually, that thing in LA, the like the immersive thing where you feel like you're in the stadium.
That's cool, isn't it? Yeah,
They had Birmingham and Wrexham on.
Yeah, Wrexham are one of the biggest teams in America. Like, not even, like they're like a top. I think they're like a top 20 like football team in terms of like fan base and popularity. They do a US tour out here every single year. It's nuts. Like I managed to get them to turn on the Reading game at the bar. It was a Wrexham game. That was why we got to do it.
I guess the thing that blew my mind is that it was I think it was even randomly, it was like a Thursday night, Birmingham versus Wrexham. A League One game.
Birmingham are interested. Sorry, I'm sorry. I just cut you off twice. It's very rude of me.
Right. But I just blew my mind. I just couldn't get over it. And I know, obviously, Birmingham are owned by Tom Brady.
Mr. Tom Brady, yeah. Who's just done the Super Bowl as well.
Oh, he did he?
He did he's the commentator now.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's very interesting for me as a Patriots fan. Because he did such great things for us, but he's also such a weirdo. It's like how I imagine a lot of Southampton fans feel about Matt Letizia, whereby what a legend on the football field, but something's gone horribly wrong in that man's personal life, since he left football, basically.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was probably to do with the structure of the deal. And Southampton, I think, we're offering it in installments, whereas we don't do installments at our club.
I also think Garcia is going to be worth a lot more. I think that's the gamble the club took. I think we might be able to get Garcia to sign one more contract for a year or two if we say we will play you almost 40 games a year. I think Garcia will be worth 2 million maybe in 2 years' time. So I think that was part of the club's arithmetic there. It's like if we spend 500k now, which we don't have, but 500k on a 2-year contract for Garcia, and then he leaves for 3 million and comes back on loan for the last half of the season in 2 years' time. Yeah, he might be the next Tyler Binden for Reading.
Yeah, we'll see how that one plays out. Really, I don't know. I'm getting quite stressed about the about the idea that we haven't got any players contracted for next season.
Yeah.
I know we're still in the middle of this one. I know we've got an opportunity to compete, but goodness me, what is it, 5 or 6 players that are contracted past
right
July?
We keep saying we're going to do this, and I keep forgetting, listeners. So next week, contract episode. That's what we'll do. We'll take a look at I'm writing that down now. We'll take a look at the contracts. Yeah, put out some feelers.
All right, cool. Not really mailbag. This will be out of date by the time you listen to it. But Reading, the academy basically, the under 23s. I don't know what they're called these days. Under 21s.
Under 21s, yeah. PL2.
They're currently losing 3-1 to Bracknell, which is not great. And
looking for things to be sad about.
Well, I just flipping hate Bracknell as well.
Oh, okay. That's what's really going on here. Don't look at it.
They don't even play in Bracknell anyway. They're playing flipping Sandhurst, which isn't even a place, really.
Right. Okay.
Rubbish.
I don't even know what that
move
is.
On. Just
yeah.
Let's
got any
talk
more
about
questions? Yeah.
No, there's no more questions. I've thrown it in the bin.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Bracknell's thrown him right off.
It has. Yeah. It's basically the Barks and Bucks Cup, and they're playing at Bracknell. 3-1 though. I mean, there's some good players in it tonight.
Look,
Senger's in it. Stickland's in it. Carnew's playing.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Akande, Spencer, Akine, Peters, Wellens. They're losing 3-1.
Have you considered that maybe Heung-min Son is playing for Bracknell?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe that's where all the Spurs players have gone. Dragusin is actually playing for.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, let's move on to Rotherham, which is a really bad place, by the way. But luckily they're coming to Reading, so we're going to get onto that right now.
There's another huge game ahead for the Royals, so be loud and be proud for the big match preview.
All right, so welcome back to Ben's travel guide to the rest of the country being rubbish, for lack of a better term. Ben, did you see the Wrexham fans at Port Vale maybe last week, maybe the week before, whereby they all start singing? And again, maybe it's because they are, half Americans in there, because they are so popular over here. They start singing, Port Vale is a shithole. I want to go home. And so the Port Vale media team put up a big sign on the Jumbotron saying, Port Vale is not a place.
You don't go after our friends in Port Vale. Put it that way.
You don't. So brilliant. I thought that was very, very funny. Not even that far away. You should know.
Honestly, if you just Google Rotherham images, it's a disaster zone. It is an absolute disaster. Is it the picture of Steve Evans? Zone. No, he's not in there. But I mean, it's not.
I thought it'd be the picture of Steve Evans with his dog that you like so much, but we've been doing this podcast.
That's brilliant.
That is
you've got to Google that, Ryan. Get a picture of Steve Evans and his dog when he's holding it by the gate. This is the
second time we've talked about this.
It's probably it's an early summer's day. He's got a long sleeve shirt on and he's holding the dog. Honestly, it's hilarious. It is so funny. So please, if you can. I'm just gonna. Who was he? Now.
Was he Crawley? No, he was Stevenage manager when we were ranting about that. Yeah,
look at that.
Yeah.
I mean, what is he? What are you doing? The dog's like, please let me go. He looks like a nice dog, but it's just like, please let me go.
I'm gonna, well, you keep going with the preview while because the next thing that comes up if you type in Steve Evans is sausage. So I got to work out what's going on there. Yeah.
Right, Rotherham. I mean, look, it's another game ultimately that we have to win. We and I say that and people go, hold on a minute, it's only February, but if we're gonna keep pace with the other clubs around us, it is a game that ultimately we just have to get 3 points from, especially given the disappointment of last night against Shrewsbury. They, they are still managed by Steve Evans. They drew 0-0 last night against Blackpool, which, under Steve Bruce have been quite resurgent, so it's not a bad result there. But, anything less than a win, and I think the fear will really start to set that we will, end up mid-table and not have much to play for come the end of the season. We win that game and we are very, very, pretty much destined to be at least in League One next season. So,
Yeah.
Just to get that done in February, it would be a fantastic achievement for this team. I ask this every week, and, when we're not just trying to go over the same questions, but given the result that we had on Tuesday, do you make changes to the team that plays against Rotherham at the weekend, Ross?
It depends for me, sort of on the fitness levels of everyone, because I thought that you were right in that people looked tired, and I thought Nibs in particular looked really tired, and I think Nibs is really one of the beating heart members of the team. I think that when he's playing well, Reading play well. I do think the wing is still the most important player to Reading, and how the opposition approaches wing is really important. But I think that when Nibs is on his game, it just massively helps Reading, especially away from home. He's such a useful player for that kind of thing. But I thought he really looked tired against Shrewsbury. So are there many changes we can make? You could maybe bring in Kamara for him if Nibs isn't ready to go. But I think that Kamara kind of does his best work on the left side as well. So I think you probably go with the same lineup. But they do really need to, come up with some way of getting the ball to wing more when the other team is insistent that isn't going to happen. Noel needs to be able to adjust something midway through a game when the opposition, comes in with a plan to, stop wing. Because it's all, it's understandable for half an hour that might happen. But if you've had halftime and stuff like that, you need to go, okay, my creative spark is not in a place where he's doing what I need him to do. How do I move him into that place? And that's kind of what I'd like to see. This was the loss this season, the away game that annoyed me the most so far this year. Leyton Orient at home, 1-0 loss, was in that position until Leyton Orient started coming good again. So I was like, okay, whatever. But this one really annoyed me. I think this might be the only game we lost from a winning position, the away game against Rotherham. So I'd very much like to get some vengeance on the Dogman.
I mean, look, they're Dogman. They're 14th. They're on 38 points. That, as I said, they're going nowhere very quickly. They don't look in danger of slipping down the table. To be honest, they're too far off to make a real push, I think, for the playoffs. For context, we're still 9th. 46 points. We could, in theory, finish the day on Saturday in 6th place if results go our way. It's not a given that we will come out all guns blazing for this. And I think, given the reaction, that the key thing will be how the crowd start the game as well in terms of their mood. I mean, the previous home game to this against Bolton, very, very stale in the stands, I have to say. Very, very nervous, very deflated almost before a ball was kicked. Obviously, by the end, was absolutely rocking given the result and performance. But it is difficult, to get people through the door at the moment. Win this game, and it takes us on to the Birmingham game the following week at home, which is a huge game. Their end will be sold out. Really good opportunity for us to test. So we really need to get a result here.
I think this team needs to go on a good run
100%.
soon.
We've been very inconsistent. Very, very inconsistent. We had the five games where we didn't win a game.
Yeah.
And we won, drawn the last two. We're very, very, as I said, inconsistent at the moment. Very unpredictable in terms of the results and the performances we're going to put out.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I just want to bring back to the possible changes. Do you start Billy Bowden on Saturday?
He's it's funny. His appearance on this podcast so far has been similar to his appearances on the pitch, in that he's just sort of gone missing. Billy Bowden so far has been an odd one for me. There was a moment that last night that kind of really spoke to what the main issue is there. We spoke earlier about Wareham being able to move and find space and then get into that space at the right time. Billy Bowden, so far, I haven't seen him make a single creative run, like not one that his teammate could actually find him with. There was a moment where Craig got the ball and was going high. Oh, it was going high. He was going down the field really fast on the counter attack, and he was crying out
Was
for
he
anybody
doing that
to
with
make.
his legs?
He's doing that with his legs. Yeah.
His legs,
He's crying out for anyone to make some sort of run for him to be able to play into or something. And Billy Bowden sort of ran in front of him in a straight line, slightly diagonally in front of him, and then just stopped once he reached the offside line. And I was just like, that's just not useful in any way, shape, or form. Like, drop off, pull a defender, like go in behind and try and stretch the offside line. Like, yeah, so right now, no, I wouldn't be starting Bowden because he just doesn't quite look.
I mean, he had 14, 15 minutes on Saturday. Another 20 something, 25 last night.
So that's I'm being harsh for that amount of time. Don't get me wrong,
difficult
but
to get in the game. Difficult to get in the game.
I haven't seen much from him so far. Maybe I need to rewatch what he was up to in particular, because when you're watching the actual full game back, the camera is obviously following the ball, so sometimes the strikers do suffer from that, in that you can't see what they're doing all the time. But yeah, so far, nothing that Bowden has done has made me sit up and take notice.
Well, that is a 3:00 kickoff at Saturday against the Millers. Could be a very nice late Valentine's Day present if you forgot to buy your other half anything. You might want to buy him a ticket for the game against Rotherham,
or a framed photo of Steve Evans with a dog.
All that,
yeah.
All that.
I'm going to send you. If we did album artwork for these things, the album artwork for today would be Steve Evans' dog fighting a shrew. That's what it would be.
Are we literally calling the pod Steve Evans' dog today? Is that what we're doing?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Because the fun thing
I
is,
always like that, because a little peek behind the curtain, if you like.
Yeah.
What happens is, we kind of, I tend to set the agenda in a very loose way, sort of try and lead the conversation a little bit. Ross then, we close it all down. Ross keeps the recording and then he puts it out, but I don't know what he's decided to call the pod.
Yeah.
So it'll always be episode 407. And I was really disappointed the other week when, for the last episode, when he just called it transfer window, women's update. Honestly, it put me in a bad mood for the rest of the day. So I was like,
I try not to do it.
Yeah. So, but that's why we're talking about that, because I'm always like, wake up in the morning, what's he called it? So
right,
quite buzzy for that one. So listen, Ross, always good to talk to you. I hope you feel a little bit better soon.
Thank you. Hope my cough didn't come through to you.
No, my throat is always weird. It's because I talk too much. That's why. Are you going to watch the game on Saturday? You're going to give it a go?
Yeah. Well, no, if I'm not. Well, I'll be coaching, but I'll watch it back, obviously.
Who's doing the ratings?
I'm not sure. Who even knows? We're doing all the admin on the pod now.
We are. Do you know what? Look, I mean, Sim's going to do it pretty soon, but if you are interested in actually writing for the Tilehurst End, we are always looking for contributions, but also regular people to write for us and kind of take on board some stuff. And likewise as well, like we've pretty much confirmed on a guest. Well, we've got Tom coming on next week with us to discuss the Rotherham game. But look, if you ever think, I'd really like to come on this pod and have a chat, we are always open to it. That's how we got Ryan, right? Bless him.
Yeah.
He kind of said, "Oh, can I come on the pod?" I was like, "Yeah, no worries." He's like, "Oh, do you want an audition tape?" And I went, "No, no, we're not that kind of outfit, mate. Like, don't worry about it." Right. You know what I mean? So, if you are interested and you want to come on and you get in touch with us, you know where we are. So, always looking for extra people to add in. It's nice to get guests every now and again. So,
always looking for writers as well. Yeah, that's a good point too. And on the ratings too, that's a good point, because obviously that's my domain, ratings. I love them, but I have been coaching a lot.
Ratings is hard.
I see. I don't
So
find them hard, but just I think that
I
player assessment is just like I don't know, it's its own like separate thing away from like whole game assessment. But we definitely need other people who are good at that kind of thing. Tom should honestly give it a go every now and again. But
you
yeah,
should. I mean,
ratings writers. Yeah,
I gave up doing the ratings when I had an agent of one of the players who is no longer at the club contact me and say, "Why have you given him this?" And I thought, you know, I don't need this.
I
Like,
was send it back like because he was shy.
it's a very subjective thing that you can take with a pinch of salt. I saw the game. I gave this person a 4 because of X, Y, Z. Don't come at me.
If you're safe like me,
not get a
listeners,
move as a result of what Ben Thomas said you did on the pitch. Simple as that.
yeah, right. If you're safe like me, what you do is you give nearly everybody a 5, 6, or a 7 every single game, and then you don't need to worry about it.
It all averages out over the season anyway.
Yeah.
So we do,
Exactly.
just to confirm, we do take it seriously, but we sort of don't. So it's one of those. Yeah. Listen, hope you've enjoyed episode 407. It's been great to be back. It's quite nice to do it midweek, actually. Give us something to look forward to.
Lots to chat.
We will be back probably on, well, it will be, not probably, we'll be back on a Monday to discuss hopefully a win against Rotherham. Could really do with a win to lift everyone's spirits and get us back in the mixer, as they say.
Put the Chuckle Brothers back into the anyway.
Something along those lines. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Have a good week, anyone. Have a good rest of the week, Ross. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your day because it's what
you as well.
3 o'clock.
4:15. 4:15.
4:15. Don't worry, I said 12.
Yeah.
Just randomly guess.
Yes, that's not that one.
It's 9:13 here in Tilehurst. So
what time is it around you, listeners? And remember, watch the video on tactics. And would your dog beat up a shrew? That's my question for next week.
And is your dog as good looking as Steve Evans? Dog.
It's Steve Evans' dog. All right, let's get out of here.
I forgot to say dog at the end of it. Nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Anyway, on that note, we're gonna call it. Have a good week, everybody. Enjoy the game Saturday, and come on, you are.